Okay guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about how I spent 3 hours in my basement cleaning up a flood. It's a pretty funny story now, but it definitely wasn't a funny story when it happened, and it definitely could have ended a lot worse than it did. So thank goodness it didn't end off badly, I don't know. So basically 2 years ago we got our basement renovated. It was an unfinished basement. It just had concrete floors and like the walls weren't even finished. And this is actually where I'm filming my video right now, in the basement. So on the day of the flood, the drywallers had finished. They had done all their sanding and everything was complete. So they left, and then it wasn't until the evening that the flood actually happened. And I wasn't actually there when it happened. I was actually house sitting. About 9 o'clock at night, I got a call from my mom saying like, oh, there's a whole bunch of water down in the basement. From what she was saying, she didn't seem too worried about it. I thought it was just in the laundry room, which has a drain, so it seemed like she was just kind of like sweeping it down the drain and everything was all right. But as I was talking with her further, I realized that the water had gone throughout the whole basement, and it was about 2 to 3 inches high throughout the whole thing. I was like, I'll come over and I'll help clean it up. And at first she was like, oh no, you don't need to, it's all fine, it's all good, we're gonna get this all cleaned up. And I was like, are you sure? Because that's a lot of water to clean up just by yourself. And she thought it was all just gonna like go into the drain, but it's not all sloped where it's all gonna drain into that drain. It's only gonna be probably good in that one room. So basically I was like, no, I'm gonna come up and I'll help. Got in the car, drove all the way up. It was only like a 5-minute drive, so it wasn't that long. Drove to the house, and yeah, sure enough, it was covered in water. It was completely flooded. So when I got there, I think my mom kind of realized like how bad the situation actually was. And I was like, we gotta call somebody. We gotta call like the first response. Yeah, so we called all those kind of first responder people, and we got a hold of one of them, but they said they weren't gonna be able to be there for like another 3 hours. And so it was 9 o'clock at the time, so they wouldn't be able to be there for like midnight, and they weren't really guaranteeing that they'd be able to clean it up any faster, and it was going to be like $1,000 for the call out. So we kind of thought, okay, we'll just try to clean this up ourselves. So I was thinking like, what can we use to clean up all this water? We did have a shop vac, but that shop vac had recently broken like a couple days ago, and it like really wasn't very good. It had like no suction power at all, so that wasn't going to help, which is really annoying because if you have a good shop vac, that can suck up water like super easily. So because we couldn't use the shop vac, what we ended up having to use was buckets, towels, and containers. So me, my sister, and my mom, we all got a bucket and a towel and then some containers, and we started scooping the water into buckets. You take the towels, you soak them in the water, and you twist them out over the bucket. And yeah, so that's what we did. That's how we cleaned up the flood, basically. So as we started cleaning up and moving over towards the laundry room, my mom went over to move some of those heaters out of the way so we could kind of clean up the water. But as she did it, they were actually still like attached to the circuit board, and she got electric shock. So that was pretty bad because we didn't think to disconnect any of those heaters, and we could have all gotten electrocuted because there's water covering the whole basement. I'm not an electrician, so I don't know what the worst case scenario of that could have been, but it doesn't sound very good either way. So turned off the breakers and unplugged those 2 heaters. They're just the typical heaters that drywallers use to like make sure all the mud dries so they can do all the sanding and all the drywall dries out properly. At first we were like, we're not making a big enough difference, this is not gonna work, but we kept on going with it, and eventually we got to the stage where we couldn't use the containers anymore, so we just had to use towels because it was like 1 inch, and then scooping up with a container, you weren't actually really getting any water. So my arms the next day were so sore from wringing out towels, like I could barely move my wrists. They were just absolutely, they were like in so much pain. The towel method did actually work pretty well. Towels do absorb like quite a lot of water, so it was actually like not a bad way to do it. Obviously you'd want like a shop vac or some other way to kind of pump out the water or suck up the water. But even though we didn't really have any of that, we still just kind of kept on going and grinding it out. I also have a younger brother too, and he was actually sleeping during this. I wanted to wake him up and kind of get him to help us, but my mom was like, no, let him rest, because I think he had like a busy day the next day. So eventually, after 3 hours of cleaning up all the water we could, we actually managed to get it so it wasn't touching the drywall. There was no puddles anywhere. The only thing, it was just damp on the concrete. The concrete was damp, that's all it was. The next day I went and bought like a dehumidifier, a fan, and a heater, and we spent the next week pretty much drying out the basement. So the drywallers came by and they checked out the drywall, and it turned out that the drywall hadn't deteriorated very much, so it was actually all right still, thank goodness. so no pieces had to be like recut, so that was really good. So in the end, the flood actually didn't do that much damage. So you're probably wondering, how did this flood even happen? So basically what happened was the drywallers, when they were finished, they forgot to reconnect the washing machine drain pipe. So basically my mom didn't realize this and she put on a load of laundry. The washing machine wasn't able to fill up with water, and it kept on taking on more and more water, and more water kept on flooding out of the outlet pipe into the basement. So yeah, and by the time my mom realized that this has happened, there was about 2 to 3 inches of water all around our basement. So there we go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a like and please comment. Definitely remember to connect your washing machine back up before you turn it on.